No one expected Jonathan Bezos to speak for himself before the United States Supreme Court. That morning in Washington, D.C., the sky was overcast. Outside the courthouse, hundreds gathered. Reporters, protesters, supporters, skeptics. The cameras were ready. Everyone was watching the same man walk through the crowd, calm, focused, dressed in a simple navy suit. No entourage, no theatrics, just a quiet intensity in his eyes. Jonathan Bezos was the founder of BlueLink, an encrypted communications platform that had exploded in popularity. The government wanted data. BlueLink refused. The claim was that Bezos' company was violating national security directives by not sharing user information with federal agencies. Bezos argued otherwise, that the requests were unconstitutional. The case had made its way through the federal courts, all the way to the top. And now, the most powerful judges in the country would decide whether his refusal was defiance or a defense of the Constitution. In the courtroom, there was no mistaking the tension. The justices were seated, the press was silent. Bezos walked to the podium alone. His lawyer sat behind him, but he had insisted on speaking directly. When given the floor, he began simply. "Honorable justices," he said, "I'm not here as a CEO. I'm here as a citizen. This isn't just about my company. It's about how far the government can go and who gets to say no." There was a pause. Then Justice Amy Coney Barrett leaned forward. Her voice was steady. "Mr. Bezos, your company has failed to comply with multiple federal directives. Are you arguing that you are above regulatory law?" Bezos looked directly at her. "No, Your Honor. I'm saying the directives were unlawful. The Fourth Amendment protects the privacy of individuals against unreasonable search. The requests we received lacked warrants, lacked oversight. They were fishing expeditions. We didn't reject the law. We upheld it." Justice Barrett's tone sharpened. "But your platform operates on U.S. soil. National security isn't optional." Bezos opened a folder. He calmly handed several documents to the court clerk. "These are internal communications," he said, "between officials at the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. In them, you'll see discussions about how to pressure our company, not through courts, but through media leaks, regulatory threats, and public campaigns." Justice Samuel Alito adjusted his glasses and read one aloud. "If BlueLink resists, portray them as aligned with extremist channels." The room murmured. Bezos continued unfazed. "We weren't just pressured, we were targeted. Because we wouldn't hand over private conversations without cause. We followed the Constitution. The question is whether the government did." Justice Barrett looked back down at her papers. The hearing pressed on. Each justice took their turn. Some were skeptical. Others seemed intrigued. The Solicitor General argued that national security required flexibility, that in the modern digital age, encryption could be a shield for dangerous actors. Then Barrett spoke again. "Mr. Bezos," she said, "this court has ruled in the past that speech protections do not shield companies from regulation. Are you claiming your company is exempt?" Bezos didn't flinch. "Respectfully, no. But I am saying this. In Net Choice v. Paxton, Your Honor, you yourself wrote the majority opinion that the government cannot use regulatory authority to force private platforms into content decisions that would otherwise be unconstitutional. What happened to BlueLink wasn't regulation. It was coercion." Barrett's eyes narrowed. For a moment, she said nothing. Bezos continued. "We received communications that offered tax relief if we agreed to certain monitoring conditions. We were told, off the record, that future compliance would influence federal contracts. This wasn't oversight. It was leverage." Another silence. Then Barrett asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Are you accusing federal agencies of violating constitutional limits? Bezos answered without hesitation. I'm not accusing. I'm showing you their own words. The hearing ended for the day, but the story didn't. Outside the court, headlines exploded. Bezos cites Barrett's own ruling in Supreme Showdown. Digital privacy faces Supreme test. On cable news, the debate lit up. Some called him arrogant. Others called him brave. 3 nights later, at a public legal forum, Justice Barrett was asked about the case. She gave a short but pointed reply. Running a tech platform doesn't put anyone above the Constitution, she said. Free speech protects ideas, not impunity. Bezos saw the clip from his office. She's right, he said, and that's why I'm fighting. Back in court, the final day arrived. The gallery was full. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the tension was felt everywhere. The Solicitor General made his closing statement. If the court sides with Mr. Bezos, he warned, we risk undermining the federal government's ability to prevent digital threats. No platform should operate above scrutiny. Then the Chief Justice turned to Bezos. Mr. Bezos, your final remarks. Bezos stood again, this time slower. He looked around the room, pausing to meet the eyes of each justice. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone, or to make a show. I came because someone had to draw the line. The Constitution isn't just for moments when it's easy to follow. It matters most when it's inconvenient. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, well-worn booklet, the U.S. Constitution. I've read this. I've studied your opinions. Justice Barrett, your ruling in net choice was the reason we knew we had to say no. You warned against regulatory back channels used to control speech. That's what happened to us. He paused. This wasn't about security. It was about control. We didn't break the law. We refused to let it be bent. He looked at Barrett directly. You asked if we think we're above the Constitution. We don't. We just think everyone else should be under it. No one spoke. Not the justices. Not the clerks. Not even the Solicitor General. The silence said everything. 3 days later, the court issued a rare administrative stay, freezing all enforcement actions against BlueLink. It wasn't a final ruling, but it was clear. The justices believed there was something here worth reviewing, something serious. Justice Barrett made no further public comment, but behind the scenes, court aides reported that her clerks were asked to review all federal communications related to encrypted platforms from the past 3 years. BlueLink's user numbers surged. At Stanford Law School, Bezos gave a guest lecture. The auditorium was packed. I'm not a lawyer, he said, but I knew something was wrong and I learned enough to ask the right questions. When asked if he thought he'd won, he said, this was never about winning. It was about proving that even in the digital age, the Constitution still draws the lines. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like someone actually meant it.